Hi everyone, Mr. McMahon here. So we're looking today for our lesson. We are looking at computer-aided design, and we're going to use a program called Tinkercad for that. So here I am in one of the Google classrooms. Today it's 7F, and we've got some resources down here in the lesson notes. So this first one is some interesting ways in which 3D printing is being used now. This next one shows you what we're making, which is a Soma cube. So it's a bit hard to see here, but in the video you'll notice 7 different pieces, and it's like a 3D jigsaw puzzle which comes together to make a larger cube. So there's a video there on how to do that, so that'll give you an idea of what we're making and how it's put together. This is a resource here. It's just an image, but it's the 7 pieces which we'll be making. So you'll need to refer to that from time to time to make the 7 parts. And here's the program we actually use, Tinkercad. So when you click on Tinkercad, I've just managed to sign in. I might just try logging out. I had a bit of trouble with it before, but let's see if I can sign in again. So I'm signing out now. And so when you come to the blank page, we should be able to just click on login. Now you're a student, so you'd click on student accounts, but I'm an educator, so I click on that one. And we want to sign in with Google, so we click on that one. And then our actual Google account. Oh, good, it's working this time. Okay, so this might look, my version, because I'm a teacher, might look a little bit different to yours. But what regardless of whether you're a student or teacher, this is what we call the dashboard button, this one that I'm circling here with the colourful bricks up in the top left. But what we really want to do is go to designs. Hopefully you can find the word design somewhere, and we want a new one. So I've got some old designs. I've got all sorts of things I've made with students there. But we want to somewhere find a new button where we can make a 3D design. Now, for me, it's over here. Sometimes it's over here. The screen has changed, and it might depend on whether you're a student or teacher, but we want 3D design. So we click on that one. And hopefully, there we go. Okay, so I've got this, and it is important to make sure you're logged on, so it saves your work. So let's just have a look at what we've got here for a moment. So we've got this thing here called a work plane, and if I zoom in close with my touchpad, we can see we've got these bigger squares and these little ones. Now these little ones are 1 millimeter each. Okay, so the little ones are 1 millimeter, and these bigger squares are 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter. Okay, now if I zoom out it by pinching in a bit so we can see our work plane, let's just have a look. What else have we got here? We've got this thing here called a view cube, which can be really important for rotating your work around. And if you ever get a bit, well, you can just click on the corners as well, so get used to that. And you'll notice they're labeled, so you want to so there's the top. I want the top at the top, which kind of makes sense, and I want that front there somewhere. And we've got some zoom in and zoom out buttons, and so on. So what I would recommend you do, I'll just get rid of that. We've also got some different options here. Now we're going to be using basic shapes, but it is just interesting to look at all the different types of settings we can use here. And at the end of the lesson, if you finish this early, you can play around with some of these, and you might want to play with creatures and characters or vehicles. It's up to you, okay? But we're going to use basic shapes. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is let's go and have a look at the shapes we've got to make. So back in our Google Classroom, we've got this here with the 7 colored shapes. All right, so if we click on that, it enlarges, and I'm going to start by making this yellow shape, shape A. Okay, so we're going to make these all 10 millimeters. You can, if we look at this, we can see it's made up of smaller cubes. So we're going to think each one of these cubes is 10 mil long by 10 mil that way and 10 mil high. So we're going to start by just drawing one of these cubes, not the whole shape in one go, but just one of them. So if I come back here, now to make this much easier, this bit called snap grid makes it heaps easier. Now we've got all these different snap grids. This one down near the bottom here, 5.0, not 0.5, that'll make it very hard. You want 5.0, and I'll try and show what that does a bit later. So what we do, we start with a box, and I'm just going to dump it in the middle of those cubes, and now it sort of clicks, it snaps to the work grid every 5 millimeters. So if you see that, it's kind of stepping along. If I changed this back to say 0.1 millimeter, it can go anywhere, but it's trust me, it's just far easier if we go back to this snap grid and we go to 5.0. So what I do is I place it there. Now this cube, actually let's look at these bits first. It's got all these little nodes that come off it, and again it sort of snaps to every 5 millimeters. It's 20 mil, and if I go a bit this way, all of a sudden it's 25 mil. It's snapping to every 5 mil. Now this is too big. If you remember back to the picture we saw at the start, I said we were going to make each one of these squares 10 mil long, 10 mil wide, 10 mil high. So back to this, if I click on here, there's a few different ways of making this smaller. I can kind of move it in a bit, or if I had a class of year 8s or 9s, I would be telling them to type the dimensions into these squares. It's a more accurate way of doing things. Now we've got the two lengths, or length and width, right? As we can see here, it looks a bit too high, and if I click on my view cube, you can definitely see it's not a cube. It's actually, or this isn't a cube, it's too tall. So this bit here allows me to snap. There we go. So we've got 10 mil high. So just check this. So to do the height, it's that little white square in the middle, and the width's 10 mil by 10 mil and 10 mil high. So this little cube here is what we use as the basis for making all these shapes. Whoop. So there we go. Okay, so now we've got there, if we look up at here, at the top here, we've got a copy button, not a paste yet because I haven't copied anything, but if I copy that, now the paste option comes up. So I'm going to hit paste, and all of a sudden I've got another cube. Now, if you look on your computer, you should have some arrow keys, and if I'm clicking along with my arrow keys, I can move those around. And again, this is where the snap grid of 5 millimeters makes this a whole lot easier. So what I'm trying to do is replicate. If I go back here, so I've got two cubes side by side. So there's my two cubes. I might even move my view cube so that kind of looks like the page. So I've got those two. Now it looks like there's one stuck to the side here. So two along and one out this way. So I'll go back to it, and I'm going to paste again. Oh, there's my paste. I click on that, and I use my arrow keys. I can drag it. Sometimes I just prefer to do arrow keys. Now make sure there's no little gaps in there. And again, if this was changed, if my view cube was changed to 1 mil, there could be a tiny gap there. Okay, there is actually a very small gap. Okay, we don't want that. And again, that's where the snapping feature of 5 mil makes this a whole lot easier to do. Okay, so I'll just rotate this in a bit. Now, I've got one, I'm pretty sure I've got one more to add here. So I've got that V there, but I've got this guy sitting on top. Okay, so let's have a look at how that's done. So I go, so there's one that sits on top there. So I better paste again. So I'll go up to my paste. There he is. I'm just going to use my arrow keys to get him out of the way there. Now I need to raise him to a height where he's going to sit on this cube. So we can't use that. That just extends the height of the brick. That's no good for this. We need to actually hit this arrow key that points up. And if you look at that, it's telling me this is 10 mil off the ground, which is perfect. That's what I want. So I'll use my view cube again and my arrows just to get him in place. Now let's have a look at how we're going here. So I'll go back to the pictures. Yep, and I think I've pretty much nailed it. Okay, I'll just tilt that down a bit more. It looks a bit more like it. Now just a few more things we need to do. I'm going to highlight, so click and drag, highlight all of those shapes, and we're going to change him to yellow, just like on the sheet. Now this won't print as yellow, but it helps us kind of keep a record of what we've done. So I know that's the yellow piece, piece A. And the other thing we can do is up here, this bit that says group. So in a moment I'm going to click that, and I want you to see what it does to all these bits where these bricks are connecting. So 3, 2, 1, click. And look at that, all those lines are gone. So now when I go to move it, it's one piece now. And that's what that group button did up here. So in case you missed it, remember you've got to highlight all of those bits. Now it's grouped, so if I want to ungroup it, I can. Not that I really need to at the moment, but it's good to know you can. So, okay, highlight it again, and group the lot. Alright, so there's one piece. I'm not going to show you how to do every part, but you need to do all 7 pieces. Make sure they're color-coded, and also make sure they're grouped, like what I showed you before. Okay. Once that's done, so you've got all your 7 pieces, and what I'd recommend is actually moving them fairly close to one another. I've only got one here, but I don't want them spread out all over the place. Once you've finished building them, put them in pretty close to one another. We need to change the file name, and you need to put your first name and then the second part. Actually, I'll just do it. I'm Jason, I'm 7F, and it's Soma. All right, so first name, your homeroom, what we're making. Okay, and that's basically done. So now that I've done this, if I go back and I click on that dashboard button again, so I click, there it is saved. Okay, but I want you to do all 7 parts. Help each other out. If you get stuck, don't be scared to ask someone for help. So you need all 7 parts, and what I can do is actually get these printed off for you, so you've actually got a puzzle that you can take home and assemble. Okay, if you've finished this activity early, and quite a few of you will, then you've got a little bit of time to start a new 3D design file. So new, and then you've got plenty of time to be creative. Now, I'm not going to, probably can't print this one off realistically, this second thing you make, but you can have a bit of fun with it anyway. Okay, so you can start putting these things in. It's a bit of a challenge, especially putting something like an eye on these guys. That's where your arrows come in really handy on your keyboard to get these things in the right place, and you can just mess around with it for a bit with the remaining time. Next lesson where I've got you guys, I'll show you how to send your Soma cube to me, and I'll send it off to the printers to get it printed. That's it from me. Good luck with it, and hopefully it all goes well, and help each other out if anyone gets stuck. See you later.